The past few days, I've put in about 45 hours into Arc Raiders. Not the most of anybody, but certainly not the least. In that time, I've picked up on quite a few learnings that may be of use to you if you're venturing topside for either what is your first time or perhaps even as a veteran out there. Today, I want to share a bit of details and tips that I wish I knew sooner in Arc Raiders. There's a million things to learn about this game, so if I missed something, first, my apologies, but it's also bound to happen. But also, feel free to add something you wish you knew sooner to this list so we can all learn together in that case. But drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and do me a huge favor, hit the subscribe button to stay updated with all things Arc Raiders and even more FPS content. We've got a ton of stuff still to come that I'm stoked to share, so I'd love to have in the community. But anyways, let's get into it. So first things first, let's talk about the gameplay loop as a whole and a top-level perspective of solos versus squads. For this type of stuff where like permadeath and you lose your things when being knocked out, when you end up having those types of games, not gonna lie, sometimes I get stressed out by that and I like to have the extra pair of eyes that I take a full squad in with me. However, with this, I've seen some general observations that it actually isn't half bad sometimes when you consider going in solos. Frankly, the times that I've played solo, it's been actually way more friendly. Like if you're going in for loot runs, I've had way better luck in solos where people tend to be a bit more forgiving and oftentimes you're just like, hey, what's up? And we go our separate ways. Because oftentimes a lot of those players are just trying to do quests of their own. Now that's not to say that that won't be that way forever or it's going to happen every single time. I'm sure that early on right now, there's still a bunch of people questing, doing those basic things in game. But personally speaking, the first week here has been seemingly pretty good to solo players and I've seen a lot of people mentioning the same. Do be aware that it could change on a dime and it could be something that still you probably shouldn't trust everybody fully, but it wasn't this big bad horrible experience that sometimes my mind mentally plays up as, well, you're on your own, kid. Get ready to lose all your stuff the moment you see a raider. Trios, on the other hand, can be friendly, but man, I've found so many times where in good faith our squad is like, yo, we're cool, right? And then, well, it's not so much, and we have to fight our way out of it. My ego says that often doesn't work well for other teams, and they could have avoided the situation with us entirely, but we've also lost enough that I can be honest with myself that, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out for us as well. But just make sure you're ready to go in for a fight if it comes to that. And duos, well, it's kind of an interesting one because I've played that the least in the duo queue because unlike solos, it doesn't prioritize matchmaking with other duos, but rather with full squad still. So you still put yourself at a disadvantage there as opposed to an equal playing ground. But it's certainly possible to do so, but again, just be ready. Additionally, one thing that's nice to know that you might not right out of the gate is players should not be spawning in the game with 15 minutes or less. So this can be pretty nice for completing tasks without being impeded, where they have to go and try and do something that you want as little attention as possible. But from that 15 to 18 minute range is when you'll start to see people truly not spawning into the match anymore. So that's when the lobbies will actually dwindle out, where it's just potentially you and AI remaining. One other thing that I wish I knew a little sooner, fundamentally speaking, deals with these skill trees. There's a couple of things I'd actually do differently from whenever I kind of mapped out how I wanted to take the skill trees whenever we got from launch day to where we are now. Personally, I did not expect to enjoy the survival branch as much as I do. Obviously, prioritizing getting your stamina up with those 2 left skills before the passive checkpoints, those I think are incredibly important and absolutely are one of the things you want to go for all the time. But to have things like Traveling Tinkerer to craft more items in world, Broad Shoulders to increase carry capacity, and upwards of things like your Security Breach that allows you to break into smaller security lockers, granting great loot without any key or anything like that, it actually took me by surprise how much I'm gravitating more towards that right branch rather than the middle branch with all the different mobility stuff. That's one thing that I definitely think is nice that you start to learn as you go along, like, oh, these are probably a little more beneficial than I gave it initial credit for right at the launch. Additionally, other things I wish I knew a little sooner because I did kind of waste a couple of points going towards these are the Effortless Roll and the Calming Stroll. Those skills, well, I've seen other people refer to it as bricking your builds with your skill tree because these don't actually do what they say they should, or don't give the intended effects as we think that they should. The Effortless Roll, you only see a benefit really at level 3, so 3 skill points into that, and 5 is kind of useless, where 3 gives you 1 extra combat roll before you run out of stamina, and 5 is non-existent in terms of that change. Calming Stroll requires an entirely different toggle for a walk because your normal, like, sort of strolling, that's not actually considered a walk, so you don't get that benefit to regenerate your stamina that much quicker. So for those, they're kind of pointless ones that you could then put those points into somewhere else. So I wish I would have knew that a little sooner before, again, I wasted a few skill points going towards those. But another thing that's really important to know, and honestly is great from any perspective, but honestly the earlier you know this, the better, is what to keep versus what to recycle. One great overall sort of overarching item at large list I saw was a great thread on Reddit by the user ProDeed, who, while it had a few errors, was a pretty solid gist of it all. Like, some of these items you may come across and need later, some may be immediate keepers, but across bench upgrades, quest items, your expedition, there's a bunch of things that you should try and keep to then put towards those things. On screen is a scroll of the basic image that was created by ProDeed that shares the basics of what to keep and what you can recycle. But again, depending on where you're at, it could vary. Like for me, I completed all of my quests, so any quest specific items I can get rid of immediately. But bench upgrades, once you do that, you can get rid of things like that. Like, I won't need the bastion cells once I complete that upgrade. I can get rid of any spares then that I'd have. But additionally, something that's also incredibly beneficial to know is the iconography of the loot you have in your inventory. An eye icon means it's a manually tracked item. You probably need this because you selected to track it. A carrot icon, or like half diamond, that's a quest tracked item, which is auto tracked but marked for you. The wrench icon on the bottom left is a crafting item where you can check by hovering over what that item is, what it will go into or what it can be broken down to. If it doesn't really go into anything beneficial, to just say it can be recycled into things. And then the diamond, that's going to be your trinkets, which mostly can be sold off for decent yields in terms of coins, but also could be used something for like upgrades or sometimes quest items. So just bear that in mind, that if you mark the quest of it, it'll also give you that, again, eye for something you manually track versus then just the diamond. Also, talking stash, upgrading your stash is incredibly important. Obviously, the more you end up going along, the more you're going to want to have the ability to hold on to things, and the higher you get into different crafting, you're going to need more and more items for various different things. So upgrading that stash is absolutely going to be a tough balancing point, perhaps, but just know that you're going to have increasing amounts of coins to expand those stashes each time, upwards of 200,000 coins to end up getting the final upgrade for your stash. However, once you get to that point, a nice thing to know, and I kind of wish I knew a little sooner, was there's sort of diminishing returns after this point, where you can craft versus buy things at a certain level depending on what you want to do with this. I'd say the most important thing that you can do while starting out is upgrading that stash. Again, eventually getting that point where it will be very expensive to finish off a stash, but after that, it's really just cash for cash at that point. Like, I'm still selling and recycling everything because I'm kind of teetering on being maxed out in my stash, but also not. But then I'm pulling out stuff from raids that I don't necessarily need, so I can sell that. And I'm pulling about like 10 to 40,000 coins a raid on average in additional value whenever I'm going for loot. So that's just going to keep me going up and up. So do I craft things then with the items I bring out, or because I have a surplus of coins, do I just buy them? At a point, you're either burning a ton of resources to craft items, or you can buy them outright. It's really a subjective thing. Do you want to get rid of more of your stash space, or do you want other things for quests, upgrades, etc., that buying outright makes more sense because you have the currency and it's not really a big deal? Next, let's talk about some in-world things to consider here. Let's talk firstly, before you jump into a match, about your augment differences. Now, augments, or your backpacks, do have a couple of differences here that we end up seeing from the launch version to what we saw back in the tech tests back in April. Back in April, with those first sort of public views of what we saw with the game, there was only your Mark 1, 2, and 3, and then you did actually have the ability to find a yellow version here that was like the best of the best for the backpacks. I've yet to see anything like that within the launch, so I'm assuming it was removed here, but alongside this now, what's different is you have different variations of each of the Mark 1, 2, and 3s. Your basic Mark 1 and Mark 2s end up having looting, combat, and tactical variations, where the backpack slots, safe slots, weight limit, quick use items, and everything like that all vary depending on what you have, where your looting will often grant you more of those safe pockets available, but will have trade-offs elsewhere. Like for me, I love using the Augment Mark II for the looting variation, where my weight limit is 60 versus a 55 or 45 in the Mark II, or at max 50 in the Augment Mark I. However, the trade-off is that while I end up getting 2 safe pocket slots as opposed to 1 for everything up until that point, as well as 3 trinket slots, I only can use a light shield with that. So there's trade-offs stuff that you have to be aware of whenever you want to go in with any of these. How you can end up checking these out is by hovering over the Augment showcase in your inventory. It'll showcase things like what shield level is compatible, how much looting you end up getting, how many safe pockets. There's iconography on that hovering sort of UI for every single one of those that you end up finding. For me personally speaking, I spent a lot of time early game not utilizing any of these looting augments, but again, they'll give you 2, sometimes 3 safe pockets if you can get a Mark III with that, depending on what version again you have. And these can be incredibly helpful for looting, setting yourself up, or oppositely, if you want to take things like the combat ones, you can use better shields and you can go PvPing. It's entirely up to you. Finding recipes for Mark IIIs are incredibly beneficial and incredibly useful if you can do that. If you're taking a looting augment as is and you find one of those blueprints, you better put that thing in your safe pocket, or else I might have to come through this video ring style and end up just turning off your console or your PC for you, because what are you doing? Additionally, once you get to Mark III, there are a few more versions that you can end up getting. You do, of course, have the looting, but you have a cautious and a survivor version. You have an aggressive and a flanking combat, and then a defensive and healing tactical. Those you have to check out what the additional benefits are on the augment for yourself when you have them in your inventory. Like the looting survivor will allow you while downed and stationary to regenerate your health when downed up to 75% max of that downed health. So like I've seen videos of people that will crawl off and get away from the people attacking them. They'll be in a bush, regenerate that health, start crawling away, regenerate that health, start crawling away, and they can actually get out that way, which is like, it's crazy to consider that that's a play that's possible, but that just shows the potential of some of these different augment variations. So if you find these blueprints, you have the ability to use them from quests or different rewards, definitely consider it, but know that you're going in with something that can be very beneficial, so try not to lose that. And finally, last thing we'll talk about on the augment side of things is free loadouts are actually incredibly good for free trading. Like if you end up just getting down to a situation where, okay, you have to take a free loadout in, you're going bare bones, trying to regain a little bit here with this. If you come out with that free loadout, don't just sell it. Don't let it just sit in your inventory. Trade up with that, because you can either get a looting or a regular combat one from Lance and the traders just for free. Like that's literally, it's a 1-to-1 trade, but it gives you much more benefits because of that. So try that out. Keep that in mind. Next, looting is just imperative. Like that sounds so stupid to say, but the thing that I wish I knew sooner was just how, not imperative it is, but like how much more patient I have to be. There's this huge divide in the game right now versus where it was before in the tech tests and what I remember playing, again, like 40 hours in like a week or so at that point again, where there is a huge divide in the frequency in which you'll find important things like blueprints. Back in the tech tests in April, the then recipes were honestly pretty abundant. You'd find them relatively easily. And I think in the same amount of time that I had here, I probably had double, if not triple the amount of blueprints that I currently have. But right now, through these 40 to 45 hours, my squad has a range of 6 blueprints to 18 blueprints. Hilariously, I think it's actually an equal split of 6, 6, and 6, where like Immortal has 6, I have 12, and Lazy has 18. So looting is imperative heading into those higher tier loot zones. If you've got a key card, those obviously get you in the door for a much more higher potential of things, better loot. Puzzle locations around various maps obviously grant more lockers, bags, weapon cases, all that are solid options. Again, if you decide to go in that skill tree and you end up getting the final skill in the survival branch of your skill tree, you can end up breaking into those security lockers, and those will often give you very good weapons and blueprints a lot of times too. So that kind of thing is what I wish I knew sooner, is that like you're going to have to look a lot more and a lot harder for those things as opposed to what beforehand, before the game launched, what it was. I'm honestly kind of imagining that I'll end up coming close to having everything that I want right around the expedition time and the process of that optional wipe in December, where I'm just gonna have to reset and do it all again. But know that going in, it's gonna be a grind here to get a lot of what you want. Looting containers for XP also grants you XP for ranking up. So like that's something that you should definitely know right up front, is even if you see a locker open, a bag open or something like that, whether it's been like that when you stumbled upon it or your teammate just opened it up, go in there and just at least look in there, open up that menu. You'll get a free 200 to 500 XP just for simply looting that, or like a husk or some arc element here with that. It's just free XP, man. Another huge thing that is very, very beneficial to the players that are playing with people is questing with friends progresses most of your own challenges if you're all on the same quest. Like, there are some, especially like later into the quest lines, which got a little annoying, there are a few that you have to deliver them to the specific trader, so you have to take the items out of the world with you and then trade them once you're out of raid. But for the most part, I'd probably say about like 75% of the quests can be done at the same time if you and a teammate are on the same quest. So you just get it done easier because there's more of you to do, and sometimes somebody doesn't even have to do anything. Like, in that sense, like if you have to mark something on a building, that can be done for everybody and only one person has to interact with it. At the same time, if you're doing something like taking down a leaper or a rocketeer, which is a challenge you have to do solo, that could be a little tough. Like, yeah, if you have a couple of wolf pack grenades, great, easy peasy, but if you don't, it's going to take a little bit more firepower. But if you end up having even squad mates and those things like a wolf pack, I mean, we legitimately took those down in like sub 10 seconds. So it's just very nice to have that availability to do it with your friends. In-game, crouching makes your aim much more precise, like stupidly precise by comparison. So if you have the opportunity to drop to a knee and start shooting either AI enemies or real players, it'll help you out with that sort of spread of where your shot can go. Night raids also shouldn't be ignored. You get better loot. If you use keys there, that's going to be obviously great because you have a higher yield anyway, plus night raid loot, phenomenal. Though one thing to consider is the arc is a lot more intense there. If you want to counter that, some fun things you can do was lure grenades can actually be thrown at arc to make other arc enemies fight each other. And then also the bigger ones will have those yellow weak points to keep in mind, so know of those. But talking night raids in particular, because you do have those higher loot yields, that's something that PvP is likely going to be more common there, so just know that you're probably going to have to fight somebody at some point. One thing to also consider with night raids is that you do not have the availability for hatches. So it's going to funnel everything combat-wise and survival-wise to those elevators. So just be conscious of that. You could get ambushed here. And again, with so many people kind of like having a bloodlust in night raids, just be careful. Sliding down declines is something that I've kind of had a blast playing around with because it's great for movement without burning stamina, and you just get that like quick little speed boost going downhill, and it's a little quicker than just simply running down a hill or something like that. Defibs are also incredibly beneficial. Once you start getting the crafting stuff to make those and you end up having the availability to do that regularly, I truly think you should have this on most of your runs that you have if you have people coming with you. If you're playing solo, obviously you're at the mercy of if somebody else has a defib because you don't have a way to sort of self-revive at that point. But if you're playing with a squad, dude, it helps out so much, especially in pin situations where enemies may be coming over and attacking that they're trying to finish you off or your teammate off. Hatch keys versus regular extracts. Let's talk a little bit about this as well, because this is something that I definitely wish that I would have known a little earlier, that you can work towards this pretty easily. Hatch keys have become significantly harder to find in world and much more expensive from their last public outing about 6 months ago in the tech tests. Then they were very abundant and you'd probably have the chance to extract from a hatch safely, maybe more times than you'd actually have to go on an elevator. Like, you could probably take one every match, every other match. But hatch keys are still incredibly beneficial because they're open the entire match, unlike the elevators that will go offline throughout the match and are way less contested. Oftentimes players not even knowing perhaps that they're in the vicinity. But hatch keys can still be obtained, but it just takes a little bit more luck in finding them or a bit more time to get there, because you can craft hatch keys that are beneficial in two different ways. Number one, it's a utility station level 2 upgrade that you have to get to. That once you get to the utility station level 2, all it requires is the advanced electrical components and sensors. Oh, but that's interesting, because if I go to my refiner at level 2 or higher, I can craft advanced electrical components for wires and electrical components. But okay, what if I don't have electrical components? Well, guess what? You can craft those too from plastic and rubber parts, both of which are free items you'll get after each raid from Scrappy. Wires? Those are pretty easy to find in the world, or can be purchased from Celeste if you don't want to. And sensors, again, rather common to find, or if you really want to, you can buy 5 sensors per day for seeds, which will be made back within a few raids from Scrappy and other loot. So like, you can craft these incredibly easily once you get to a certain point. And then also, if you end up advancing your skill tree on the right with survival, you can end up getting Traveling Tinkerer, which allows you to craft those items in match, and you can either bring items in or find them and just get out of there whenever you want in game. So very, very beneficial to know. And finally, the last thing we'll talk about, because we are quite a long time into this video, is how trials work. This is actually really beneficial if you want some higher level loot. Sometimes it'll give you blueprints, some higher level pink rewards, or some other things like that. But these are season-long leaderboard events where each week there are specific challenges that you have to take part in if you want to do this. These challenges track and take your best score of a single game. So it's not something that's cumulative. It doesn't end up adding on top of what you've done so far this week. If you beat your high score from the week by doing one of those challenges, it will then take that and put you then in the leaderboard. Which, by the way, when we talk about leaderboards, this you can end up getting promoted by a tier or 2 tiers or staying the same. That all depends on your score and where you rank in the sort of bracket you're in. But whenever you do that, this will then cumulatively push you towards upper ranks as the season progresses. So each week you can end up either staying the same, promoting 1 or 2 tiers, that you're climbing a progressive ladder at that point, going upwards of things like Daredevil or Hotshot ranks. And for those people that are truly grinding, the Cantina Legend, that's only reserved for the top 100 players in the world. But myself, probably won't get there. I was off to a slow start here with the leaderboards and trials with the launch of the game, trying to do a bunch of other stuff. But I mean, hey man, if you want to go for it, and you will get a bunch of decent loot out of that. But anyways, that is where we're going to wrap it up. That is a handful of things that I wish I knew a little sooner. Again, probably going to forget some stuff here, so if you want to add to this list, feel free to. We're all here for the same reason, but I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down below. What do you guys think of this? Anything that you would add, anything that you like or learned out of this? Drop your thoughts. If you guys enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so it's a single thing regarding all things Arc Raiders. We have still so much upcoming. And now that I've finished all my quests, man, like we have a ton of guides that I really want to get out here in the next couple of days that I'm excited to share with you guys. Hope you guys enjoy it, but subscribe for more Arc Raiders and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. For now though, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.